Revealed, how a millionaire's touching test transformed his maid's life in just 30 days. Emily Carter stood in the sprawling, sun-drenched foyer of another mansion, her heart heavy as she smoothed the creases of an ornate silk tablecloth. The echoes of laughter from the family upstairs struck a sharp contrast to her life as a single mother. Each day, she cleaned the homes of the affluent, dreaming of a different reality for her 8-year-old daughter, Lily. Bills piled up on the kitchen counter, reminders of a life that sometimes felt impossibly out of reach. What was it that made their world so effortlessly grand, leaving her to scrape by on meager wages? Would hard work ever be enough? The thought gnawed at her, particularly when she watched Lily with her friends, their parents offering everything from dance lessons to summer camps. Emily wanted to provide her daughter with opportunities, but at what cost? The energy it took to keep up her workload and then come home to be present for Lily was overwhelming. The internal battle made her question her worth. Was she just the maid, forever confined to this cycle? Doubts crept in like shadows, whispering that she might never escape this life. One ordinary morning, her routine intersected with the extraordinary. An accident in the grocery store. A spilled jar of olives introduced her to Robert Hastings, the billionaire philanthropist renowned for his charitable endeavors. As he helped her clean up, their eyes met, and for a fleeting moment, she felt seen like never before. As he introduced himself and inquired about her life, Emily almost hesitated. Why would someone like him care? Still, she shared snippets, recounting her struggles with a mix of pride and vulnerability. What was it about this man that triggered hope? Before they parted ways, Robert surprised her with an unexpected proposition: a 30-day challenge aimed at transforming her sense of self-worth. At first, Emily laughed, almost dismissively. The notion felt incredibly daunting, pulling her out of her comfortable shadows into the chaotic unknown. But there was a flicker of intrigue in his proposal, a challenge wrapped in encouragement. Was this her chance to break free? Her heart raced at the thought, yet fear tangled around it. Accepting help felt like a betrayal of her own resilience. As the days unfolded, Emily threw herself into the challenge, confronting workshops, public speaking classes, and moments with Lily meant to strengthen their bond. Yet with every step forward, her triumphs were often eclipsed by paralyzing self-doubt. Was she growing, or simply masking her anxiety beneath a polished surface? Each evening, she sank into exhaustion, brain racing through the day's tasks, questioning if she could truly redefine her worth amidst the relentless demands of motherhood. The late-night study sessions stole precious moments from her time with Lily, pushing her closer to the edge. Midway through her transformative journey, whispers of Robert's past loomed large, a family tragedy that resonated eerily with her own personal history. It opened their conversations to raw vulnerability, yet left her questioning everything. How could she accept help from someone whose privilege was so starkly different from her own hardships? As they stood in Robert's lavish office, the weight of his offer felt suffocating. Would allowing a wealthy man into her life undermine her struggle? Could she trust him? The clock was ticking on her challenge, and with it, her resolve began to crack under pressure. Could she trust that she was deserving, or would she forever be tethered to her current existence? Emily stared out of the window, watching the clouds drift lazily across the sky. Her mind was filled with turmoil as she wrestled with the emotions churning inside her. The challenge loomed over her like a storm, its pressure mounting by the day. She had experienced small victories, public speaking classes where she dared to share snippets of her journey, and nights spent brainstorming idea after idea for a small business that could lift her and Lily out of their current life. But doubt echoed louder than pride, making her question the very foundation upon which she was trying to build her new self. Every time she stepped into Robert's office, his world, she felt an imposter. Surrounded by reminders of his wealth, the grandiose furniture, the art that could fund her dreams tenfold, Emily's inadequacies flared like a beacon. She recalled their conversations, the way Robert spoke about ambition and pursuit, but it was all shadowed by the belief that he would never fully understand her struggle. Standing among reminders of his advantages left her feeling exposed. As the days bled into weeks, Emily recognized a pattern. Every time she shared a piece of her struggle, a piece of her worth, she was met with encouragement. Robert never dismissed her fears, instead, he invited her to confront them. Yet, the more he chipped away at her walls, the more conflicted she felt. Was acceptance of his help an acknowledgement of her inability to stand on her own? Determined to peel away these layers, she turned to her daughter for guidance. One quiet evening, as they prepared dinner together, Lily's carefree laughter filled the kitchen. Emily paused, the sight of her daughter's innocent joy struck her like a bolt of lightning. In that moment, she wondered if Lily could see her mother's deep-seated struggles. Could she sense the burden of unfulfilled promises or the weight of relentless pressure? What lessons was she teaching her by merely surviving instead of striving? Later that night, as Emily tucked Lily into bed, she realized that her choices were influencing not just her future but her daughter's as well. She needed to exemplify more than endurance, she needed to show Lily the value of seizing opportunities, even if they were accompanied by fear. Turning her back on Robert's challenge might be refusing the light she desperately needed. The next day, with a new sense of purpose, Emily approached Robert after another workshop. She had seen glimpses of success in those few weeks, and despite her fears, she could not ignore the spark of potential that was igniting within her. I want to push deeper. I need to confront these fears. Let us keep going, she declared, her voice steady yet heartfelt. Robert's eyes lit up. He had seen the shift, the way she was growing before him. He formulated deeper challenges for her, a presentation in front of strangers, a social media pitch for her future business, a goal of reaching out to influential contacts who could help elevate her efforts. Each task sent shivers of trepidation through her. Yet, there was an undeniable flicker of excitement beneath the fear. But deep down, an underlying dread still rumbled. What if she failed? What if she exposed herself to judgment both from Robert and herself? As those questions loomed larger, Emily felt the tremors of anxiety and determination battle within her like a storm, fierce and unyielding. A pivotal week approached, bringing not only her first public presentation but an opportunity where she could make connections that might alter the trajectory of her life. The date loomed closer, pushing her to a crossroads where she would have to decide whether to withdraw or step into the unknown. Would she rise to the challenge, or would she back down, ceding to the fear that long plagued her? The ultimatum tied tightly around her heart as she balanced on the edge of something that could either transpire as her greatest leap or her most devastating fall. The moment of reckoning was fast approaching, and Emily knew the choice she made now would shape her future both as a mother and a woman seeking to break free from her past. Would she embrace opportunity, or turn away out of fear? The imminent choice lay heavy and direct, beckoning her to dive into the depths of her potential. As the day of her first public presentation approached, Emily's internal dialogue became a cacophony of thoughts both uplifting and debilitating. The fear that had once paralyzed her began to, paradoxically, fuel her resolve. Each step towards the podium felt like navigating a treacherous mountain trail, exhilarating yet perilous, each segment an opportunity for failure or growth. This was her moment, there would be no more hiding. The evening before the presentation, Emily found herself pacing the modest living room, rehearsing her speech into the mirror. Voice trembling, she uttered the words she'd crafted, a tale of struggle transformed into a narrative of hope. Yet, the mirror reflected more than a speaker, it reflected a woman grappling with the depths of self-doubt. You're not just speaking, she muttered to herself. You're showing Lily what it means to rise. Behind the rehearsals lingered a deeper fear. What if her story resonated, but she failed to convey the power of it? Then came that fateful morning, heavy with potential and thick with anxiety. The sun streamed through the window, illuminating a path that felt both radiant and daunting. Emily donned her chosen outfit, a simple yet confident ensemble that reminded her of the strides she'd been taking. Each element spoke to her goals, each button fastening her commitment to change. Yet, standing before the window, she hesitated, feeling as if fate might shift at any moment. On the drive to the venue, dread lingered in the air like humidity on a summer dawn. What if I stumble? What if they don't care? The torrent of worries cascaded through her mind. But she reminded herself that she had prepared emotionally and intellectually. Each deep breath came with a fading flicker of self-doubt as the gravity of her responsibility crystallized. This wasn't just a presentation, it was a reflection of her journey and a testament to her growth. Upon arriving, the buzz of attendees sent a jolt through Emily. She observed the confident faces around her, engaged in conversation and laughter, and briefly felt like a misfit, a reminder of her moments of doubt. Yet, she quickly shifted focus, noting the shared apprehension in some of the newcomers who fidgeted with their notes. Perhaps she wasn't alone in this unease. Maybe there was camaraderie in vulnerability. Robert's reassuring presence anchored her as he approached. "You're ready, Emily. Share your truth." His calm demeanor burned away the competing worries, allowing her to find clarity in purpose. The microphone beckoned, almost tempting. Would she accept its invitation to shed her old skin? As she stepped onto the stage, her heart raced. The audience quieted, their attention now solely on her. This was it. She began, words flowing at first like water from a burst dam, each line carrying her story. The unprecedented vulnerability made her cheeks flush. She spoke of despair, of small victories, and ultimately of hope, threading her narrative through the aspirations of every woman who had ever felt trapped by circumstances beyond her control. But halfway through, Emily felt the tide shift. It wasn't just her words filling the air, it became a dialogue between her and the audience. She could see empathy sprouting in their eyes, recognition echoed back at her. As she described the dream of her business taking shape, she found herself not just vulnerable but empowered. "I was unnoticed, but I am not voiceless," she proclaimed, a surge of confidence igniting her spirit. When she concluded, a wave of clapping erupted, an ocean of validation surging upon her. The relief was palpable, yet the internal noise of uncertainty hadn't dissipated entirely. A lingering question curled within her: should she open herself further, allowing others to learn not only from her successes but her missteps? As she stepped off stage, overwhelmed with emotion, she was met by attendees eager to connect. Conversations bloomed like wildflowers. She found herself exchanging ideas, potential collaborations, and encouragement. It felt transformative, and for the first time, she considered the possibility that failure was merely a stepping stone, not the end. But then, an unexpected voice pulled her back to her insecurities. A successful entrepreneur from a competing business approached, her demeanor haughty. "Impressive, but do you really think a former maid can compete in this space? You know it's about pedigree, not just passion." Emily's throat tightened, her heart racing at the familiar sting of judgment. Was this woman a harbinger of her deepest fears? The challenge lay not just in public speaking but in confronting the biases and doubts that emerged from others and herself. As she squared her shoulders, Emily realized this was yet another mountain to climb, another lesson before her. Her worth wouldn't be defined by opinions, but through her ongoing journey and relentless pursuit. The day's successes urged her towards possibilities she hadn't dared before, yet an unshakable question remained: could she rise above skepticism while nurturing her newfound confidence? That duality of self-discovery, a presentation leading to a deeper reckoning, had begun, and the answers awaited her in the connections she forged and battles she faced. With the seed of opportunity planted in her heart, Emily knew, this was merely the beginning of a new, invigorating chapter. Would she gather the courage to face old wounds while reaching for new heights? The next challenge loomed, ready to surface, waiting to provoke yet another awakening. As the applause faded, Emily felt a mix of exhilaration and vulnerability washing over her. The connection she forged with the audience began to anchor her resolve, but the sting of the competing entrepreneur's words still gnawed at her confidence. Suddenly, it wasn't merely about delivering a presentation, it was about standing her ground amidst a world that often overlooked her value. The weight of that realization pressed on her, challenging her to confront not only the external judgments but the ones that echoed in her mind. In the following days, Emily chose to immerse herself in the aftermath of her presentation. Each email and message she received from attendees sparked a sense of belonging she hadn't anticipated. Conversations about her story morphed into discussions about potential collaborations, and for the first time, she was invited into spaces that felt exclusive. Yet, her discomfort lingered, a reminder of the skepticism she faced, especially from those who deemed her past as a limitation rather than a strength. Emily set up meetings with a few individuals interested in her entrepreneurial journey, hoping to transform fleeting connections into lasting partnerships. She approached each meeting with a mix of eagerness and trepidation, recalling the harsh words of the competing entrepreneur. Her mind danced between doubts and aspirations, forcing her to confront a new, albeit daunting, reality. Every conversation she had could either validate or challenge her emerging identity as a businesswoman. One afternoon, she found herself seated across from a local business owner, Sarah, in a cozy cafe buzzing with energy. Sarah's genuine interest in Emily's journey softened her nerves. "Your speech was inspiring," she said, eyes sparkling. "I think there's a demand for what you're proposing." Emily felt a flicker of hope but couldn't help but notice moments of her anxiety bubbling beneath the surface. What if Sarah saw only the facade? What if her past shadows distorted her present? Steering the conversation toward business strategy, Emily carefully shared her vision. She spoke of her newfound passion for creating an inclusive space for women entrepreneurs, where resilience could transform into opportunity. As she unraveled her ideas, she noticed confidence blossoming within her, the fear of judgment receding with each bold word. Sarah leaned in. "Have you thought about marketing your story more boldly? There's power in who you are and where you come from." The suggestion struck Emily profoundly, igniting a flicker of potential. However, it also unfurled a layer of apprehension, exposing her vulnerabilities could reinforce existing biases. Would the world embrace her story, or would it be weaponized against her once again? That evening, as Emily sat with her thoughts, an internal conflict swirled. She felt that revealing too much might empower others, but what if it left her more exposed? The tension grew, urging her to confront this moral dilemma, to embrace her authenticity fully or to build a shield against potential ridicule. Time slipped away as she explored possibilities for her venture, mapping out ideas for a blog, workshops, and networking events. The excitement of creation mingled with the dread of failure, igniting a renewed sense of purpose within her. However, the echoes of self-doubt crept back in. After all, how could she elevate herself when others still held her past against her? As the gravity of the decision loomed, she scanned her surroundings, pondering the path ahead. Would embracing her story galvanize her mission or lay her bare to criticism? As days passed, Emily began implementing Sarah's feedback, gradually drafting a plan for a public-facing initiative that showcased her journey. But just as she started feeling empowered, an unexpected phone call shattered her confidence. It was Robert. "We've had some unforeseen issues with the funding," he stated tentatively. "We need to reevaluate." The news felt like a blow, tossing her hopes into disarray. Perhaps she had leaped too far too fast. Suddenly, the dreams she was nurturing felt distant, as if they were never meant to bloom. Would she be able to regroup and redefine her purpose in the face of disappointment? Determined, Emily took a deep breath, steeling herself to dig deeper. The fear of regression stung painfully, inviting her to question whether she had the grit to face yet another challenge. As she prepared for a crucial decision, one that would shape her identity and influence her learning journey, Emily understood this moment would not be just a test, it would also be a revelation. With heart racing, Emily resolved, she would not let this setback define her. There was power in fight, and persistence was her ally. The next challenge awaited, testing not just her vision, but her will to rise above every past misjudgment, ready to discover if she could integrate failure as fuel for her transformation. Would she uncover the real depths of her resilience, or would doubt extinguish the spark she'd only just fatefully ignited? The call with Robert reverberated in Emily's mind like a distant storm, unsettling and ominous. She sat at her desk, surrounded by lists of potential collaborators and scribbled notes regarding her vision. What once felt like a blossoming garden of opportunity now resembled a barren landscape, void of the vibrant possibilities she had been cultivating. She took a moment to breathe, attempting to quell the rising tide of anxiety. If she was ever going to challenge the perceptions that clouded her visions, she needed to focus on the resources still at her disposal. As the shadows of uncertainty loomed larger, she decided to channel herself into her work. With a finger hovering over her laptop, she opened a new document titled Revised Strategy. Instead of listing her ideas, she started with one crucial goal: to transform vulnerability into strength. If she wanted to lay the groundwork for an authentic connection with her audience and partners, she must first embrace her journey without apology. She began to outline not just what she wanted to create, but also how her past experiences informed her vision, unwilling to let anyone, least of all herself, dictate the narrative. Each word flowed from her heart, piercing through the cloak of doubt enveloping her. Late that night, after drafting her strategy, Emily's phone vibrated with a message from Sarah. "Let us collaborate on a workshop," it read. The thought of teaming up reignited a spark within her. Strengthening that budding partnership could provide the momentum she desperately needed. They could leverage their collective stories to inspire women grappling with their own insecurities in the entrepreneurial world. But as excitement brewed, another voice crept in, whispering that vulnerability could backfire. What if her past experiences made her less credible? The conflict overwhelmed her, yet she pushed on. Aligning herself with Sarah meant being true to her narrative. She decided right then that they would not hide behind polished facades. They would share their journeys, the grit, the failures, and the victories. It was an offer for others to find solace in shared experiences. The following week, as she and Sarah conducted their first workshop, Emily's heart raced with anticipation. The energy in the room was electric, charged by uncertainty and hope. As they shared their stories, the shifting expressions on the attendees' faces revealed the power of authenticity. Emily could see empathy and understanding reflecting back at her. Yet, while her initial vulnerability brought connections, it also drew out insecurities. Though individuals resonated with her journey, self-doubt lingered as a storm cloud. Would they judge her if she faltered? Would the whispers haunting her would-be companions bring about rejection? Each question pulled her deeper into an intricate psychological web, where the need for acceptance clashed with the necessity of self-acceptance. When the night wrapped up and the last participant left, Emily and Sarah exchanged exhausted yet triumphant smiles. They had created a haven, albeit momentarily, where fears became whispers and dreams aligned. Yet, the following morning brought a stark reminder of her journey's fragility. A follow-up email from Robert reiterated the obstacles regarding funding, with the project risks catalogued meticulously. In that instant, Emily felt the familiar grip of fear. But this time, she didn't recoil. Instead, she confronted the dread head-on. She could either collapse under pressure or dig deeper and fight through the adversity, fusing her narrative with determination and resolve. As she reflected on the night's success contrasted with Robert's disheartening message, she felt a profound clarity emerge. The duality of vulnerability and strength was not a weakness, it was her strength. She understood now that the doubts echoed around her were not hers alone to bear. Others had placed their own insecurities onto her. She could redefine the dialogue by shaping how she presented herself moving forward. Stepping into an empowering space, Emily resolved to take control of her narrative. She pulled up the email from Robert, fingers poised to type a response. It was time to advocate for her vision, to leverage every ounce of energy she'd cultivated through her experiences. With each keystroke, she began crafting a new message not just to him but to every potential partner. She was here to stay, despite the setbacks, ready to redefine what resilience truly meant. But with this bold determination igniting, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that hidden challenges lurked ahead, challenges that would require more than just passion. Would she be ready to face the sharp, cold realities of the entrepreneurial world, where not everyone would embrace her journey? As she hit send, a ripple of uncertainty coursed through her. The real test was yet to come. She would soon discover whether her growing network of support could withstand the storm. The next chapter of her life awaited, laden with potential yet fraught with hidden risks. Would Emily unfurl the layers of her strength, or would unforeseen challenges snuff out her new flame? Emily stared blankly at the screen, the words poised to fly from her fingertips blurred by doubt. She had sent the email, but the immediate satisfaction she expected was overshadowed by a gnawing anxiety. Reconnecting with her narrative had been invigorating, yet the weight of uncertainty still pressed down, heavy and suffocating. As the hours dragged into the afternoon, Emily found herself pacing the confines of her tiny office space. Her mind flitted between fragments of constructive thoughts and the crippling enormity of her undertaking. What if Robert dismissed her ambition as naive? What if potential collaborators turned away? The echoes of their murmurs played mercilessly in her thoughts, each rejecting her vision and framing it as mere folly. In an effort to rally her spirit, she reached for her journal, a vessel for her most private reflections and aspirations. The blank pages called to her, urging the organized chaos of her mind to spill onto the paper. It became a ritual she developed, writing not merely as a creative outlet but as a way to embody her resilience. With each stroke of the pen, she unveiled her fears and stripped them of their power. "Failure is not an end, it is a stepping stone," she wrote, allowing the mantra to settle in her mind like an anchor. There it was, crystallized, her determination morphing into a mantra of growth. But that notion of failure lingered, unsettling and unwelcome. Would she still feel this resolve if she did stumble again? Days turned into weeks, and as the follow-up email from Robert had gone unanswered, Emily remained in an uneasy limbo, caught between reluctant anticipation and simmering frustration. Amidst the silence, the workshops with Sarah flourished. They designed sessions filled with exercises that empowered participants to find strength in their journeys. Each time they spoke, Emily felt the tendrils of doubt loosen their grip, replaced by the shared warmth of sisterhood. They were not alone in their struggles, and that realization anchored her. However, during a particularly emotional workshop session, Emily witnessed an exchange that shook her foundation. A participant, a woman named Lila, shared her story of entrepreneurial failure, a venture that had imploded under the weight of expectations. The vulnerability spilled from her like a torrential downpour, igniting the room with raw authenticity. Emily was captivated but alarmed. The stark realization hit her with merciless clarity: for every uplifting story they shared, there lay an equal risk of igniting others' shame. Would exposing her own past render her open to judgment, just as Lila was? What if her openness pushed participants into the depths of their insecurities instead of lifting them? The next morning, Emily awoke with a renewed sense of urgency. She needed clarity. She resolved to reach out to Robert again, not merely seeking funding, but to assert her vision boldly. She would no longer play small, she would present an unpolished truth, knowing the potential repercussions. As she sat down at her desk, the role of self-advocacy became crystal clear, an illuminating moment pulling her from the shadows. Words began to tumble onto the page, each conveying her tenacity and conviction. No longer did she shy away from the messiness of her reality. Each risk she took melded into her identity, every struggle becoming a badge of honor. With her heart racing, she crafted a subject line that caught the essence of her revival: "Let us explore potential together, no mask required." With a decisive click, Emily hit send. This time, the act felt transformative, more like a declaration than a plea. Whatever happened next, it was hers to own. But beneath her exhilaration remained an unsettling question: how would Robert receive this bold new chapter? Would he recognize the genuine strength in her story, or would he remain entrenched in his stoic reservations? As she closed her laptop, the strain of tension weighed heavily on her shoulders. The line between vulnerability and acceptance was increasingly blurred. Emily felt a storm brewing, not just in her professional dealings but within herself. She knew that no journey worth taking came without risks, yet, stepping into the unknown always felt precarious. Now equipped with a courageous heart, she stood on the precipice of her next challenge. In the distance, shadows of doubt and opportunity danced together, promising change yet warning of potential setbacks. Would the upcoming discussions with Robert build her dreams higher, or would they shove her into a confrontation with crushing reality? The stakes had never been higher, and Emily felt the electric pulse of potential in the air. The moment of decision was approaching. This time, she would not retreat in fear, she would face the confrontation directly. The days crept by at an agonizing pace, the silence between Emily and Robert stretching taut like a drawn bowstring. The anticipation was unbearable, each minute spent in limbo only amplified her doubts. Had she misjudged her approach? Did her bold message land with the impact she had hoped for, or had it fallen flat into the void of indifference? Emily summoned every ounce of resolve she could muster, filling her days with productive tasks that veiled her anxiety. She poured herself into workshop preparations, brainstorming new strategies with Sarah, and reflecting on participant feedback. Yet, as she meticulously crafted rubrics and rehearsal plans, the thought of Robert loomed like a cloud overhead. A week after her last email, she found herself staring at a new blank page in her journal. The weight of ambition and fear swirled within her. What was it about Robert's silence that consumed her thoughts so completely? She began scribbling again, determining to uncover her demons. What is it that I truly fear? She wrote, before pausing to ponder her own question. Was it rejection? Or was it the fear of failing not just in front of Robert, but in front of everyone? Later that afternoon, a notification flashed across her screen, shattering her train of thought. A message from Robert. Her heart raced as she hesitated before clicking it open, a mix of hope and dread thrumming through her. "Let us meet," it read, the brevity electrifying and disorienting at once. Was he intrigued? The response felt both like a golden opportunity and a horrifying trial. As she prepared for the meeting, Emily exhibited a calculated mixture of excitement and apprehension. She practiced her narrative, framing her vision with clarity, while also considering the possibility of pushback. Each step toward the meeting felt monumental. She envisioned the conference room, the smell of brewed coffee wafting through the air, the weight of Robert's gaze as they sat across from each other. Yet as she donned her chosen outfit, a tailored blazer that gave her an infusion of confidence, she could still hear Lila's story echoing in her mind. Vulnerability. Validation. Fear coupled with bravery. The duality overwhelmed her. She needed to find balance. Her readiness to lay herself bare must not lead to her undoing. Arriving at the sleek office complex, Emily felt the facade of professionalism envelop her. The steel and glass design was intimidating, the success it represented almost palpable. Yet, standing in the lobby, she could feel the orchestra of her thoughts crescendoing. What if Robert's expectations surpassed her own? When he finally entered the conference room, she was struck by his presence, his poised demeanor cushioned by years of experience and authority. As they exchanged pleasantries, Emily was hyper-aware of the subtle cues, the slightest flicker of interest or skepticism in his eyes. She instinctively reached for her notebook, grasping it like a lifeline. "Thank you for meeting with me," she began, her voice steadying as she spoke. She laid out her vision, each sentence woven with the threads of her journey, her fears articulated yet tempered by her resolve. Robert listened intently, shifting in his seat. When he pressed her for details about potential pitfalls, it took all of Emily's strength to own her past failures without flinching. As the conversation flowed, the air thickened with expectancy. The moment that Emily had braced herself for arrived, Robert leaned back, steepling his fingers, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You're saying all the right things," he mused, tilting his head slightly. "But what qualifies you to lead this initiative?" In that moment, Emily felt her past merging with the present, the acknowledgement of her struggles, the scars that had shaped her. Her heart raced. This was the confrontation she had steeled herself for. She had to navigate the line between defensiveness and assurance carefully. "Because I've lived it," she declared, her voice growing firmer against the waves of self-doubt crashing around her. "I've faced rejection, embraced vulnerability, and learned that authenticity resonates deeper than any facade." A deep silence fell between them, hanging in the air like suspended breath. Emily's conviction had clawed its way out, pulling her toward a negotiation that could tilt the balance of her journey. Would this exchange affirm her strength or unravel her? As she prepared to hear his response, an inkling of hope emerged in the shaky confines of her heart. Would Robert recognize the girl behind the bravado, or would he strip her down, exposing all her raw edges? The stakes lay bare before her, it was a turning point shrouded in uncertainty. She waited, breath held, for his decision. The stillness in the conference room felt like an eternity. Emily's pulse quickened, her stomach churning with the gravity of the moment. Robert's gaze held weight, dissecting her words and intentions, and for the first time, she realized that this was not merely a professional pitch, it was a test of her very essence. Your authenticity is admirable, he finally spoke, breaking the silence, but how can you translate that vulnerability into leadership that inspires a team? The question pierced deeper than the preceding one, and Emily felt the ground shift beneath her feet. It was one thing to lay bare her experiences, it was another to translate those emotions into a roll-up-your-sleeves leadership style that didn't just resonate but activated change. Leadership is not just about vision, she replied, a newfound determination igniting within her. It's about creating a safe space where others feel empowered to share their truths. I've learned that collaboration thrives when everyone sees their voices as essential. Yet, as she spoke, a shadow of doubt flickered at the edges of her mind. Would her intimate understanding of vulnerability truly inspire others? Would they see in her the confidence she so desperately wanted to project? Robert's brow arched slightly. How do you intend to manage the friction that comes with those honest conversations? Not everyone will embrace vulnerability. I plan to lead by example, she said, pushing her anxiety aside. In my workshops, we cultivate an environment where feedback exchanges are structured and empathetic. I want every team member to feel heard. I intend to encourage dialogue, not monologue. The fire in her veins bolstered her words, but she noticed the skepticism beneath his calm demeanor. Was she relying too heavily on ideals? Empathy is integral, but it's not always enough, he countered, his voice measured. You'll face resistance. Can you handle the discomfort that may arise? This was her crucible. The tension in Robert's query held the mirror to her deepest fears of inadequacy and failure. Did she dare admit that she too feared the backlash of honesty? Yet, at this moment, surging with adrenaline, she made a deliberate choice. Discomfort and conflict are part of growth, she asserted thoughtfully. I embrace them as opportunities for learning and connection. I will lean into the hard conversations because growth doesn't happen in comfort. As her conviction hung in the air, Robert studied her with renewed intensity. If you're serious about this, do you know who your real allies will be? Who among your team will push against your proposals? That question struck a chord. Allies? Perhaps Sarah, with her unyielding support. But what about those less inclined to embrace change? Emily felt an unsettling realization surge within her. This was a moment to identify specific individuals whose resistance might unearth hidden strengths or weaknesses within her leadership style. I'll need to conduct thorough assessments, she acknowledged, understanding my teammates' motivations and concerns will be paramount. A reluctant nod came from Robert, his facade cracking slightly to reveal the leader beneath. And how will you measure success? How will you know when you've truly changed the culture? Overwhelmed by a whirlwind of ideas, Emily spoke slowly, carefully choosing words that would articulate her thoughts. Success will be measured not just by feedback scores but by the stories that our team shares. I'll rely on both quantitative data and qualitative narratives to see if we are evolving toward that safe space. We will have check-ins, reviews, and reflection sessions. As Robert leaned back, considering, Emily felt the weight of possibility unfurl inside her. With each answer, her understanding solidified, she was ready to confront not only external obstacles but her own internal battles. She had grasped the importance of both verification and vulnerability in her approach. Let us consider a pilot program, Robert suggested, a flicker of interest igniting his eyes. Perhaps you can gather feedback at every stage to refine your approach. An exhale she didn't realize she was holding escaped her lips, buoying her hope. This wasn't just the beginning of a project, this was the launch of her transformation from an uncertain worker into a decisive leader. As they wrapped up and set timelines for follow-up meetings, Emily felt a burgeoning excitement grip her. This was no simple initiative, it was her pathway to genuine growth. But the lingering unease remained. Would she successfully measure up to not only Robert's expectations but her own? And what challenges lay ahead, waiting to unravel her newfound resolve? With everything hanging in the balance, she departed the meeting room, exhilaration and anxiety swirling within. The moment of truth beckoned, her journey steadily unwinding ahead. Yet, as she contemplated her next steps, alone, troubling thought whispered in her mind, what if the real challenge had yet to reveal itself? The air buzzed with energy as Emily returned to her desk, the weight of the meeting hanging in her thoughts. Her fingers trembled slightly as they hovered over her keyboard, the exhilaration of the possibilities clashing with the daunting realities she had just faced. The pilot program loomed large, an invitation to prove herself, yet uncertainty gnawed at her insides like a relentless tide. She logged onto her computer and opened her emails, each subject line a potential obstacle or opportunity. What if her team resisted the proposed changes? What if they questioned her authority? She fought the urge to drown in a sea of what-ifs. Instead, she remembered the vulnerability she had championed in her pitch. Discomfort leads to growth, she reminded herself, her mantra in the wake of that meeting. A notification flashed on her screen, a message from Sarah. Let's meet. I have some ideas for the pilot program. Relief washed over Emily, and she quickly replied, suggesting they convene in the small conference room upstairs. As she prepared for the meeting, her mind raced with potential structures for the program. The conversations she would encourage, the feedback forms she might introduce, even the icebreakers to inspire openness among her team swirled in a vivid dance of creativity. When Sarah arrived, her enthusiasm was contagious. I'm on board. I think we should start with a survey to gauge the current culture, right? It'll help us understand what's working and what needs to change, she suggested, her bright eyes sparking with ambition. Absolutely, but we should focus on framing it in a way that emphasizes growth rather than criticism. I want everyone to feel safe speaking up, Emily replied, energized by her colleague's support. As they brainstormed, Emily noticed how her confidence began to solidify. Planning details became her grounding point, transforming nerve into clarity. They outlined key performance indicators that encompassed both success metrics and personal growth narratives. Exhilaration filled the space as they crafted what felt like a living document, a roadmap toward a more supportive workplace culture. Yet, as they delved deeper into their project, something gnawed at Emily. The thought of team members who might resist their ideas weighed on her. Would they view her efforts as naive, an overreach from someone still seen as an underling? Her thoughts drifted toward Lucas, a senior member known for his skepticism of new initiatives. He often dismissed novel ideas with a wave of his hand, his piercing gaze reserved for any who dared tread over existing protocols. Lucas may not be the only one we have to convince, she said, her fingers unconsciously tapping on the table, an anxiety-induced rhythm. We need to anticipate pushback before we even approach the team. Dropping the buoyant energy, Sarah considered this. Then let us think about a pre-meeting with key stakeholders to present our vision. We can show them the benefits early and ask for their input. If they feel included in the planning, they might be less resistant later. The idea felt pivotal, yet the stakes terrified Emily. What if she could not win over the influential voices? Will they really listen? Will I earn their trust, or just open myself up to judgment? Hey, Sarah leaned in, lowering her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. Remember how you handled Robert? You harnessed that fear into something authentic. Keep that energy with you. After their meeting, Emily left with a plan to reach out to Lucas. Fear loomed behind her steps as she scheduled a coffee chat with him, hoping to turn confrontation into collaboration. She knew she could not shy away from the discomfort, the relentless pursuit of growth demanded it. As she prepared for this conversation, doubt crept in. What if Lucas pushed against her best intentions? What if she mismanaged their dialogue, unraveling her confidence? The tension of this reality hardened her resolve, illuminating the narrow path of risk she must take. Standing at the intersection of personal growth and professional vulnerability, Emily pondered the impending confrontation with Lucas. The time had come to face not just his skepticism but her own fears of inadequacy. With every heartbeat, she felt a mixture of dread and anticipation. A confrontation awaited that would either carry her to success or test her faith in what she sought to achieve. What lay beyond this initial resistance could very well redefine her understanding of leadership. In the days leading up to her meeting with Lucas, Emily prepared meticulously, rehearsing her approach in front of the mirror. It wouldn't be easy facing the skepticism of someone deeply rooted in the corporate structure. Lucas was not just any colleague, he was a formidable presence who could ignite or extinguish the flames of her initiative. The day of the meeting felt electric. As she approached the cafe where they agreed to meet, her heart pounded fiercely against her chest. Would he embrace her vision or shoot it down before it had a chance to take root? She took a moment to breathe, reminding herself of her mantra, discomfort leads to growth. This was just as vital for her as it would be for her team. As she entered, she spotted Lucas seated at a table, his stern demeanor softened slightly by a steaming cup of coffee. They exchanged pleasantries, and Emily sensed his guarded posture, one that she would need to dismantle with her authenticity. With a deliberate calmness, she began her pitch, outlining the purpose of their upcoming pilot initiative. I believe we can create an environment where everyone's voice is heard, Lucas, she began, watching for his reaction. This isn't just about bringing new policies, it's about reshaping our culture. Lucas regarded her with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. And what makes you think anyone will embrace this? Change is hard, and people resist it when they don't see a personal benefit. His words stung, but instead of retreating, Emily pressed forward. I understand that. I've faced resistance before, but I believe we can demonstrate tangible benefits by creating an inclusive space where collaboration thrives. When people feel seen, they engage at a higher level. The tension in the air shifted slightly. Lucas leaned in, intrigued yet retaining his critical edge. But what's the measure of success? If this fails, what do you plan to tell the team? Failure is not the end, it's a stepping stone to growth, she asserted, recalling her recent reflections. We'll implement regular feedback loops, and if we discover any shortcomings, we can adapt, refining our approach. In that moment, Emily was no longer just an underdog, she was articulating a vision grounded in her journey and in the realization that resilience stemmed not only from success but from learning through failures. Lucas nodded, his guard slowly lowering. You make a strong case for this initiative, but what about the leadership backing? You'll need support from higher-ups to enforce and reinforce these changes. Have you thought about that? Deep down, she knew that sustained change depended on endorsement. I recently pitched the initiative to Robert, and he showed interest in piloting it. But your support would lend weight to the proposal. If we align together, I believe we can shift the culture significantly. A flicker of respect passed through Lucas' expression. There was a transformative quality to exposing her vulnerabilities, it drew people in. All right, he said slowly, let's trial this together. We'll build a presentation for the stakeholders based on what you've outlined, but I want to ensure we don't sugarcoat the potential hurdles. Absolutely, Emily felt the warmth of victory wash over her, knowing she had forged an essential ally. In that cafe, amid their discussion of challenges and expectations, she realized the boldness of her journey was not solely about pursuing her vision but included embracing discomfort. From that point onward, as the pilot initiative officially launched, an invigorating synergy began to develop within their team. Collaborating with Lucas opened doors to deeper engagement, and Emily found confidence growing not only in herself but in the collective momentum of the project. They held team meetings focused on dialogue, emphasizing a culture of trust, turning initial apprehension into excitement. The follow-up meetings were exciting. Feedback poured in, and Emily's spirit soared with new insights. Reactions varied, some enthusiastic, others skeptical, but each contribution added layers to their evolving approach. She effectively incorporated her own experiences into these discussions, turning vulnerability into a source of strength that resonated with her colleagues. As weeks went by, tangible metrics began to emerge. Survey results reflected increased engagement within the team, and narratives shared in follow-up sessions underscored the impact of the initiative. Emily felt invigorated when she realized they were not just surviving, they were thriving. The culture was slowly shifting. People were embracing growth, collaboration, and, most importantly, embracing their own vulnerabilities as pathways to development. But the true testament came as her key stakeholders gathered again to review the pilot's progress. As she presented the data and shared personal anecdotes from team members who found light in the darkness of vulnerability, Emily stood proud. This was it, the moment that solidified her journey of transformation. When the meeting concluded, active discussion sparked. Robert leaned in, an impressed smile winking at her. "You've proved this can evolve, Emily. The outcomes have been both promising and inspiring. It seems we can truly embark on officially integrating this across departments." Emily's heart swelled with a profound sense of achievement. No longer was she seeing herself as merely a maid or an underdog, she had established herself as a leader who transcended her beginnings. Her courage had catalyzed change, demonstrating that embracing vulnerability could forge connections and spur growth. As her colleagues surrounded her, congratulating her on the success of the pilot, she realized that every challenge she had faced was worth it. The road had propelled her to heights she had only dreamt of. No more self-doubt hindered her clarity. She had risen above the shadows and found her true calling, one where empathy, resilience, and authenticity blended seamlessly into her newfound identity. The journey she undertook would be eternal, but now she had shaped it. Emily had not just gained recognition within her professional realm, she had conquered the confines of her past and found her voice, a voice that flourished on her own terms. This is the moment to recognize the power of vulnerability and resilience, and to act as agents of change. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now, do not wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.